Hey, bravo, well done. Just, I always want to address the idea of memory first. Is memory usually fine with you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just pointing this out because I think.
It's just my second performance, so.
I see. No, I think for every pianist, memory is always an important area if we play from memory. So just the only place that you seem to. What was that? It was where it goes back to a different key.
I think I recognize.
It was before the minor section, wasn't it? Do you remember where it was or not?
I know one place, for sure. It was towards the end.
Where was it? Anyway, it's always good to, if anything ever goes wrong, whenever you play them through, it's best to fix them. There's usually a reason why it's there. I've often found, like, when you do recordings, where things happen, they always happen again and again and again. So it's best to, take a note of that. How do you normally memorize? I mean, do you have any strategy when you do that?
I think there's no kind of specific. I haven't got any specific exercises, just by playing through.
So I mean, if something is difficult to memorize, like if it's like a turning point in Mozart, I mean, here it was where it changed direction. Often it's the easiest way is just to try and visualize the score. Just think, at this point, I usually look at that bit on the page. If you can try and visualize some detail, just like how the notes look, that will often help you. And also, just remember where your hands are. Just think, I got to move that way or the other way. So it's just little things like that. And if you've got if you use the normal memory of just knowing how it sounds, and you back that up with a bit of visual memory and a bit of physical memory, then usually nothing will go wrong. And and as I said, if something happens, try and note down where that happens, and then work on that, just because that shows a sort of a weakness. And the other thing I like to do, because I mean you guys are all good pianists, so does anyone have any observation about this piece? I don't mean don't mean nasty, but just did anyone? And if you think hearing that piece, if you've played it or you thought any just general comment? Anyone like to share? Because it's often helpful, for us. I think the pianist is often the toughest profession, especially when you're out of college, because no one listens to you. I can count on the fingers on one hand the times I actually meet other pianists. I think the only other pianist I've ever met working is Peter Jablonski, just because there were two of us doing a chamber festival, but we never actually heard each other. I think the toughest thing actually today was probably the room, because it's quite a boomy room, and I think as a pianist, I think you have to, when you think this is my instrument, that's not your instrument, this is the whole instrument, And the tough thing is that the only person hearing the instrument from where you're sitting at is you, and everyone else hears it from way over there. So I think maybe some of the shaping you were trying to do got lost because of the room. The harmonies change a lot. It made a lot of the middle register sound louder, probably. I mean, I don't know. So I think it's important to. I think the hardest lesson for me was to learn to listen to yourself, try to imagine how everyone else hears it, rather than what you're hearing at the keyboard. I thought, can you just open your score? Just because I've got a different edition.
It's a Paderewski.
What is forte now? Okay. I think so. For me, the tricky thing about this piece is that the middle section does seem to go. It dominates the whole piece, even though it's a scherzo. His scherzi have evolved. The first scherzo is a much simpler. It's just a quick 3/4 and a very simple idea of a scherzo, and then the second one slightly developed. So the third and the fourth, especially the fourth, that's where the scherzo gets kind of pushed back into the background. And I think because of that, I think it's the best thing is to focus on the differences. And I did feel at the beginning that you got very loud very quickly. I would, it's the beginning of it's quite a long movement. 10 minutes is is long by sort of average standard. So I think pace yourself there. Maybe just try that again, just from the beginning. That quite free then, or not intentionally, or?
With a bit of intention.
Okay, so I think you could start. Right, let's think of a few things. Okay, so the first thing I would address is maybe the sound, the color that you're making, and I know many different teachers and pianists have different ideas on what we can do, different kinds of touch, but I remember speaking to a technician where they said that the hammer is a thrown pivot, which means that once you've put the key down, you can't affect the hammer because it's not connected on the modern piano. And that basically means the only thing you can affect on the piano is the speed at which the hammer hits the string. And that means the only tool that we have to change the sound on the piano is the balance that we have. So you could experiment a bit more with this. If you put more weight on the right, it's very obvious, but more weight on the right hand, you have more brightness. If you do the left hand, so I think you should think about that. But I think I would try and, this is only forte, isn't it? It's not fortissimo. So I would really try and keep that beginning section. I would start in a way. In this room, it needs, I think, more time as well. I think just try and keep. It's fine to take time, but we've got to know where the bar lines happen, I think. So. Okay, so all right. Then, the other thing is most of the scherzo is very staccato, and I feel that here's one place you could really show a bit more legato. Just really try to join those notes more. Where it doesn't, I think what's important is we have this motive, but he actually marks. So we have to show that a bit more. I sort of you get a bit more legato somehow. I think really try and join the notes of both hands. So on piano, to get a legato, that each time you hit a note, the sound dies away. So if you don't catch the next note at the same volume, then it sounds like an accent or a staccato. So I think it's not a question of joining the fingers, it's actually making sure everything is the same volume. And if the piano is uneven, then you have to compensate for that. I really want to get this, this note. So try playing just that, yeah? But really just that. And listen to that, yeah? Without the other notes. Do that again, but really shape it how you'd want to. Okay. Now, if you listen to what you're playing, you started with a more weight on the left hand. But then you switch to the right hand. I would try really keep the balance the same until we get to. I would say change color on the next line, but not within that. Then it just confuses us as listeners. Is there an accent there? No? There's a bit of an accent. Okay. Okay, so then do that again. I'll play the last. Just play the same thing that you did, a bit slower. So. The first one. Yeah. I mean, so I played that. So let's do that again. So. The idea being that when you play those notes, you should still be able to play that the same way that you played it just now. Because when you played it just now, the sound carried, and it sustained over that. But when you add those tend to go over the sound and they interrupt the flow of that. So it's all a question of balance. But you have to listen really carefully to what you're producing, I think. I wouldn't go fast yet, because that's the cadence. I'd save it until that, and then really sort of come in with an a tempo, fortissimo, with the sort of the momentum. Only from that, I would do that. So just try to keep the feeling of here. I think, unless you really disagree with that. So. How do you normally practice this? Are you still going to play this in like any concerts or exams, or are you leaving this now?
Yeah, I do, but mostly for myself.
Okay. So how have you been practicing the octaves? Just to know.
Slowly, mostly. Well, if there's any problem with octaves, then I do that slowly, and especially with that place where it's the downbeat.
Okay.
Kind of.
So just slowly. You don't have any other.
Or with the dotted, with the rhythm of a dotted. Dotted.
Show me how you do that. Just so I know. Just. Okay. Do you ever get tired in this piece at all, or not really?
No. I mean, all I try to do is just relax my hands in the octave as much as I can.
I think with this piece, I think the most effective practice method would be to double one of each three. And do it musically, but that works because that way you are playing the interval change double the speed, in effect. You're playing. But that way you slow down the music, that you only have to worry about one of those three beats. But that would work better, I think. And then if you do, so first one. And then the second one. Yeah, and then you can do the third crotchet as well, doubling that. But I think that would.
So either the first two or the last two.
Well, just try it. So try. I'm just playing the first crotchet of each three 2 times. That's all you're doing, just playing it twice. So. That's it. Yeah. And then do the next one, doing the second crotchet twice. Then. And that would work for any kind of staccato, even in this, in the next part. But I feel it's important to play with the sound and the shaping that you would normally do in concert. Don't do it just like a mechanical exercise. So this section. I thought the octaves were really good, and I think that for me the first trouble starts here. Because you shaped the octaves very well, but as soon as we got to this bit, as soon as the right hand came in, you're sort of missing some of the notes sometimes, you know. Sometimes you actually miss one out, and I don't feel you're shaping it, isn't it? So I think it would be good to try and, I don't know, let's try the under speed, but just play the staccato notes, yeah? So don't play don't play these long notes. Just play just the left hand. So here. Because basically that motif comes back and it takes over until we've got back to double octaves again. And I think it would be good if you try and shape that really starting from there. And have think that you're building that all the way up till where it comes back here. Yeah. And I think just try that again, but just only play the crotchets, and I'll play the other bits. But really listen to what you're doing. Try and shape it as much as you can. So there, yeah. Yeah, well, you could, yeah, I mean, but feel that you're actually building that up, so. And how much time do we have? I think maybe this is overdoing it, but I think it's always a good idea, especially if it's a piece you're going to play. You should be able to do that from memory, that line. You should be able to separate that mentally, so you don't have to stare at the music to do that, you know. And if you can't do that, it actually means that you don't really know it well enough. You don't know that line separate from the rest. And I'm focusing on that bit here because here we have a completely different thing. We have and we have to have the 2 elements. And in order to do both, you have to be able to hear both in your head while you're doing that. And I think if we don't have enough time to keep doing this, but if you just play that a few times and shape that, then when you actually play both hands together, you will subconsciously be able to hear that. And, you know, it won't be sort of just everything together. You'll be here. So I just wanted to then skip to this middle section. Generally, I thought you were doing very well, but the hard thing with this section, I think, is that it comes back again and again. It's always the same rhythm, only the harmonies change. And I guess if we're just listening and we don't know the piece, we start to get lost in it. And I think that you could try thinking more to vary. It felt like you're always doing the same kind of. I think it would be good to sometimes start more instantly. Yeah? And sometimes take more time. And this, I felt, most of the time, the harmony held over the pedal, but it didn't feel... I'll say why it didn't feel like this. It didn't feel like you were really sort of going to the long note. And I say that because sometimes you dropped on that last note. You went... And if you do that, there's no chance for that to hold through. So again, we don't have that much time, but can you just try just playing the chorale? And listen to it, really hear it right till the end, and then... And imagine we don't have those, don't play those quavers, but just play from... But also count the full length, and listen to what happens to the sound at the end of that. Yeah? Okay, so I mean, there you were, you took much more care of that final note, and I think I meant the last chord. Whereas when you're playing it with both things, you tend to forget about thinking, oh, I've got to get to this. And I think the other thing that's important is that this harmony doesn't take away the attention from the chorale. There's no melody up there, you know. It's always repetitive. It's just a kind of rhythm. So let's just try that again with both elements this time. Just a question, so you don't want this to echo more the chorale? You could if you wanted to. You don't have to, but... There's an option if you want to, but at the moment it's sort of just blended in, so... let's carry on from here. So I think in this room especially, at that register, you have to really be careful with the quaver. I think you need time because of the echo. It doesn't come through otherwise, I think. So, and I think I don't think this middle section has the scherzo element in the chorale itself. So I wouldn't try to rush that. I would just take the time you need for it to sound out clearly and legato. So let's just try that second time again from here. artist. I think just I would. He marks that pianissimo. I would really try not to shape that too much. I think that's the sort of a bit like having a rest. I think. And here, are you intending to move the tempo on a little bit, or?
Yeah, towards the top.
Okay.
Or is it like a...
I think that's fine if you want to do that. I think, but you don't want to sound like you're just rushing. And I think I'm trying to think how we could avoid that. I think if you took more time on the actual melody. I think it sounded, yeah, because you get faster, but I think at the end it doesn't feel like it resolved. It kind of. I think if you took time at the end, and again here, I think you have to balance both hands, so that you have the legato sound, as in no accents and balance, sort of going all the way through it. Can you just try that from here? But really listen to this. Make sure it's shaped as you would want to shape it. Do you want to bring out more the top or the left hand or both, or?
I'm trying to do equally both hands.
Okay. I think that can be difficult, just because if you miss one up, then it switches to the other hand. So it might be, I don't know. Sometimes it's just easier just to concentrate on one hand and try and accompany that with the other one. I think.
And which hand would be best?
That's kind of up to you. That's really up to what effect you want there. I think we've had this. That's the contrast of the color that we've had. I think it'd be easier to concentrate on the top. You just get more color change that way. But again, if you feel really strongly about bringing the thumb out. It's always a question of what you want to bring out more, but I think in terms of playing safe, it would be safer to do it on the top, I think. We don't have much more time, wait. Yeah, I was wondering here, what was your kind of, what are you trying to show with that motif? Do you know what I mean here?
It's kind of a mirage.
Okay, because it's a sort of voce, and I think you played it louder than the rest of it. I don't know if that was intentional. Just try again from. Yeah, from there. I think if you didn't rush it so much. I know it's difficult, that's probably why. I think feel that the important thing is the left hand. And try not to rush it. I think that the faster we play passage work, it creates a crescendo. So. Oh wait, so we're not really anywhere near the end. Just a question. So in this section, is it your intention to push the speed on at all, or?
Yeah, actually, I have been asked to do that.
You've been asked to, and what do you want to do?
It didn't have that motion, and it was kind of steady in there overall. And just my professor suggested to accelerate a bit.
And what do you do? Do you have a preference yourself? Or?
I think I need to listen back to it.
Okay.
So.
I think if you don't want to.
But still, I feel like it's a reflection, kind of.
Sure. I think that for me the slight problem with that whole sort of build-up is it breaks in the middle. I think if you can do one sort of organic crescendo all the way, I think that would help things, whether you do the accelerando or not. I personally would rather enjoy the kind of just keeping it slow, I think. But I think for that you have to really, it's even worth writing in dynamic markings on each line just so that you remember exactly what you're getting to. And again, but remember that on the piano, that as the texture gets, as he adds more notes and the chords get wider, it's going to crescendo by itself. So you have to sort of compensate for that. I think we have to move on to the next person, I think. So, but thank you very much, Nataly. Thank you. So.
Thank you.
Hey, bravo, well done. It's a tricky piece. Okay. I guess. Do you feel emotionally close to all the movements, or did you find it more difficult to
Well, I would
understand?
say, yeah, the most difficult for me is the first one.
Okay, sure.
Obviously, because there are so many of them, and they change so rapidly, basically.
Okay.
It's just so hard, to switch yourself when you are performing.
Sure.
It's fine when you're practicing because you can control everything, but when you are performing, that's such a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, I felt for me the strongest movement was the last movement. That just felt very. I felt it was very under control. I like the fact that you weren't rushing, many things that we would rush. And I think especially with this sonata somehow, it's, as you said, the first movement isn't so clear emotionally, even though it should be, because he tells us what it means. But it's kind of very, I'd say, sort of academic writing for Beethoven, I feel. But I think it's typical with the works around this period. I think he's just trying to, I think he didn't want to seem too obvious that now we're going to put some human emotion into music, and that the reviewers say, well, this is making music too simple. So I think he tried to compensate for that. I don't know I'm just trying to think if we do the first movement then. I thought one thing you could think about just over the next few weeks is the idea of this phrase. Yeah, and what I felt you could think about the most is just which direction it's going in. At the moment, it always felt that I think it was. Just play it again. Just.
Sure.
Okay, that's it, yeah. So, this is not a criticism, but this is just an observation. It feels you always start here, and there's the intensity, and then it goes away. But I think other times you could also think about focusing on the resolution. So we have the horns, obviously, it's horns.
Yeah.
You could think, well, now this is the emotion that changes. Yeah, so give yourself more time, or I think you could probably help yourself by concentrating on the resolution, thinking, how does that affect the emotion? We have a simple emotion, purity, and then we have the feeling of the farewell, the sadness comes there. I think generally I was convinced by your tempi, but sometimes it felt, for me, more in the slow movement that it wasn't logical how you slightly changed the tempo. Mm-hmm. And I think because it's a very compact piece, I would feel it would be better to find a more universal tempo which works with everything. Mm-hmm. And I think often with Beethoven, it's very much the case. The faster it is, the more rubato you need, and a slower speed, you can play it more uniformly. So I would, because it's so compact, I would tend to try and go slightly slower, and that way you don't have to interrupt yourself so much. Mm-hmm. But let's just start from the beginning again. But just try thinking, more about the sort of, yeah. And this is the other thing. I felt the first three lines. It would be good if you tried to keep it much more of a piano espressivo all the way through. Mm-hmm. I think because he goes down to the pianissimo here. I think all these, even this, it's very subtle. It should be. I think it's all very gentle, very sad. And it felt you did a lot of movement, and then when we got to the forte, it wasn't so much of a surprise, I think. So, mm-hmm. So maybe just try those two
sure.
things. Okay, so I think for the beginning, I think we get a sound closer to horns if we maybe favor more the lower notes. It felt that you're balancing here, obviously for the melody. I think how I would approach this beginning, I would really try to keep this consistent all the way through. And I would use the left hand to change the color. So I don't think we should lose the melody still has to go to this note. Then you can change it. And then the other thing, I don't know whether it's just this room here, but this will happen in many situations. You've got to listen out for yourself. Here, if you play this too fast, it sounds like an accent. It gets very loud. So you can either take time, and especially here, just when you play that, listen to it, because suddenly it sounds like a big crescendo for no reason. Even that's not what you want. You have to remember that the audience hears what comes out of the piano, not what you put in. So you have to really compensate. So just try the beginning again. That's good, yeah. And so then the difficult thing here, we have to make this note sound the top note. Otherwise, if it's too quiet, we lose the melody. But otherwise, it was good. Go from this. Okay, sorry to stop you all the time, but so two things. So then, don't forget this left-hand line. This one. It still goes on. And I don't know whether this is on purpose, but you then get faster during the crescendo. I think just take time. And I mean, the sforzando, I think with Beethoven, it's tricky because before him, there weren't really any dynamic markings. The piano couldn't really play much more than a bit loud, a bit soft. So he was working with the piano builders, and he had to invent. I'm going to write this, but we just have to express what we think he wants. So I don't think that means sforzando. It's not a big accent. It just means he's saying it's okay if we accent it a bit. He wants it louder than the note before. That's if you want, that's the focus of the crescendo, and I think it's nothing more.
Not the sforzando, like the usual.
In the last movement, it's different. So I think.
Shall I start?
Yes, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so just an idea for here. So I thought it might be worth taking time before that. You went straight in there, and I think it would help just having time. And the other thing is, you're trying to be very musical here, but I think sometimes in Beethoven, because it's quite drawn out, I wouldn't do too much there. I would just use the register. So just play it. And the same again. and then something happens a bit. And then the big one. Let's just carry on, just go from the last one, from this, and onwards. It's very difficult things in that. I know you do a big breath, you go, but I think sometimes it might be good if you want, it says attacca subito, I mean, it doesn't mean there's an element of surprise, but sometimes you can start this early without the physical preparation, and maybe that will get a different effect. I think here, for me, it's important that we wait on the tenuto. And the other difficult thing is the harmony. It changes so much. I think it might help, especially in this room, if you maybe use less pedal for this thing and show the slurs more. Maybe just try that. The tenuto is for the harmony. It's just for the harmony, so we hear the harmony. And I think the sforzando means that's the focus. I think it's almost like crescendo. I think so. So emotionally, I would kind of feel more kind of sort of longing feeling, just sort of a sadness. I think that's what, for me, that's the dominating emotion, is how do we get this feeling of les adieux? And I think that's, this is the kind of saying, maybe, okay, we say goodbye. Whatever it is, maybe it's a horse going off or something. But I think the feeling, the emotion is in this. So I would go to that, as he's written, the top note. And don't forget this note. I think that brings the emotional element for this movement now. So just try that, I mean, a few times if you want. Even more to the top, even more to the top. Try that. Okay, and then don't forget this is, so this is all detached. But then it's really good legato now. And here as well. Just remember to really try and do the legato on the right hand there. Again, so it's all about having the harmony that we can produce the sort of the emotion. I think I'm slightly missing the bass line somehow gets lost. I don't know why, whether it's you could use more pedal or it's, yes, it's very easy to miss, but I think just really take care of that bass line. The next part, I know it's very difficult. I always kind of, when I get a place like this, I always imagine recording it because, yes, we have edits, but they can only edit it if you actually get it right. So I think what's good is that you're not rushing that, and it's, as long as you hit that, that's about all we can hope for. I think that maybe mentally, if you split it up into a few elements, like we got, that's not difficult. That's easy, yeah?
So basically, for me, like the hardest place is this one. So the very beginning. Yeah, because sometimes sometimes I just lose, you know, basically the track in a way.
Yeah, that's hard.
the problem.
How do you finger that?
Oh yeah, so I changed my fingers.
Just do it slowly.
So I'm doing
What's on the A
4,
flat?
4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 5.
Yeah, okay.
4, 4, 3, and then the very last one is the third finger.
Yeah. 5 is hard because then you can't get the, I don't know.
I like trying to
I mean, I think that's, I just have to find something which works. And how have you practiced that?
Oh, like the differences. So, for example, you know, only the top voice, then this. So, like,
Okay.
you know, in different ways, in many ways.
I think that, I mean, that's not going to be that much help because, so, I mean, just because you don't play it separately. I think you have to practice it together. And I think it's just different kinds of rhythms. I think what would help is this kind of rhythm. Do you do any rhythms here or not?
Yeah,
no?
sometimes.
Like,
Not in this version.
I would kind of do it. So you join, so we go, these two you play twice. So you're doing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. So. Do you understand?
Yeah, I do.
That would help. Yeah, I mean, it is a nasty place. I mean, I thought you did very well. This was fine, actually, even though you said, I think the note you really have to get right is that one. But I think that kind of rhythm would help.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
And I thought then afterwards, I think this section is kind of easier to understand emotionally.
Next one, yeah,
Yeah,
kind of, yeah.
but I thought here, I thought we could make more change from this. You made a big deal about this. But then I felt that kind of takes away from the next section. And then you didn't really change much here. I think here we have to have a very different sound, more legato. He's giving us a clue. He writes espressivo. Why does he write it there? That's the part he wants to express. And I think it's just, I think use what he's written. Use the harmonies. And make it more legato. Maybe take time. I often think, like in Beethoven and Brahms, it's a good idea to think whenever they write espressivo means slightly meno mosso. I think because then it forces you to put more into the music. So let's just try from.
Yeah, I can try that.
Just try from a bit before. So here, the piano.
Sure, yeah.
I thought you could, I like what you're doing up here. But I would keep going with the emotion. And then relax.
Okay.
And then I would try to find something here which is, it's espressivo but not heavy. You know, something more intimate maybe. I think you're getting quite a kind of heavy sound because there's a lot of outside, that's why. And if it's less on there, but you've sort of... So more, let that dominate more. If you give some time, then it still allows the ear to catch this note. And be careful not to rush there. because the harmony changes so quickly.
Can I try again, yeah?
Yes, of course.
From the same place, I guess, yeah?
Yes, let's do that again. Yeah. Just try from here and try less, even less. Okay. Then the middle section, again, I think it's the idea of this. Obviously, it's changed, but it's the three notes. Just be aware, when you played it through, it was always piano, and it sounded very loud. Whether that was intentional or not, that was the result. So I think it's if you want to avoid that, you have to be very careful then. I tell you why, because here we're playing one note, then we play one note, then we play three.
Yeah.
So whatever happens, that's going to be 3 times louder. So if you want it to be the same, you've got to play it 3 times more quiet. This here, just be careful, you're catching whether this was intentional or not. You're doing... We always heard this note.
That's actually intention. And
It is intention.
Yeah, like not completely, but like my intention is to do this. Because he writes it down, basically.
Okay.
Like, kind of.
Then that's fine, but then I think I would definitely make sure that the slur is still... So that it's da-dum, ba-dum, like some bowing. Let me just see what else. Then it repeats again. Just at bar 1, 9, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 1, 9, 6 here. Do you want the left hand to be so staccato?
Yeah, I was thinking like everyone plays it so differently. Yeah, I think it makes sense in a way because it's still Beethoven. I mean, it's like
Okay.
kind of late Beethoven, though.
So then, just don't forget about the other element then. That's still very legato, yeah? Yeah, I thought this crescendo was well managed. Just wondering whether if you really want to get so slow, so early at the end here, it might be good just to only save it for the last one. This.
Yeah, I think I started it like too early.
Yeah.
The roots basically. Yeah.
We have to stop soon, don't we? I just quickly on the second movement. Are you happy with your opening tempo?
It's like a hard question in a way. I mean, because sometimes yes.
Okay.
Sometimes no.
Because
depends.
the only bit where I question it is here. I don't think it should then. It shouldn't suddenly feel it's getting faster.
Yeah, because I tend to slow down. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, basically it's because of this thing. And then I have to return somehow, but that's a problem. Yeah.
I think at the beginning it's fine to play slow. I don't think you can play this too slow, you know. If we play it faster, you have to be very careful of the slow that it doesn't sound too fast. Yeah. And again, in the cantabile, I thought you could make more. You could just try and get it a longer line. Just think of it as a really long phrase there. He writes cantabile. And I don't think you have to rush this one. Because it's better that you slow down rather than either creating an accent or missing the notes. You know, if you play it slow, no one's going to say anything. They're going to just say, well, you're being musical. But if you miss the notes, they say, you should have played it slow. Or, you know, do you understand? It's just a kind of, this kind of academic things. I'm just trying to think if there was anything else. The last movement. One detail is a very minor detail. I just wondered why on here, this second time, bar 146. You don't do the long crescendo there. Is that a choice? Or?
Well, basically, like, kind of.
Okay.
In a way, I mean, obviously, I'll still need to revise it in a way, because I know he writes it differently.
Yeah.
I mean, in the recap, yeah. But it's like harder. Well, yeah. It's. Thank you for noticing this.
Okay.
Yeah. It's basically forgot about it.
And also then here, so at the beginning, I like that you do, but don't forget about that. That sounds a little bit sort of that you don't care about so much for it. And the other thing, so with Beethoven, he studied with Haydn, and so he wanted to study with Mozart. That's why he went to Vienna, but Mozart didn't have time for him. And so Haydn and Mozart had quite different views, and one thing they really differed on was when you have a sort of variation form. And this applied to, obviously, especially to variations, but say here is also a little bit of a variation. Then you have the next one. So Mozart always said in the variation, the theme is important. So how do you change the theme? But Haydn's teaching was always to say, we've heard the theme, let's hear the new stuff. So that was how Beethoven was kind of taught. So just bear that in mind, like here you have, so in a way this is already old. So more, and here. So just think about that. You know, sometimes that it may give you a different idea. So just one, and also here. Explain what you're doing with the sforzandi and without the sforzandi.
Yeah. So basically, I can just show you. So. Changing the way I play the notes, basically. So like, it's like, firstly he writes dots only in the first half of it.
This is again Beethoven just being Beethoven. The only difference is he writes the sforzandi, so I think that's a difference of shape. I think what he wants is just that you play, it's almost like a crescendo. So the first time I would actually just try and each time get the sound bigger. And again, we have here all the bass frequencies dominating here already. So I think the only thing you can do is actually add in the right hand. And the second time, don't try and expand anymore. Just match the sound. And the other thing is, if you're too loud at the end of this, you'll need so much time before the sound disappears that you can't start this, you know. So I think it's a good thing maybe to think of the second one as slightly crescendo, I think. I mean, it's not vital, and it's not going to, you know, make a huge difference. I mean, it already sounds good here. And, yeah, I know we've got to stop. Just think here. Just think that make sure all the elements are taken care of, this, with a crescendo. And also, you know, bear in mind this is new phrase, and this is a longer one. So when you practice, make sure everything works together, that you're not only concentrating on. It just makes everything much more sort of interesting and balanced. I thought here there could be more difference between this texture and then a longer phrase, and especially the last one. It's a very long phrase for him, so just try and show those things. Are you where the recap comes back? You didn't really mark that at all. You want it to just suddenly go back in, or?
Basically, I have two options. So I can either do this. Suddenly, or the other way. And I don't know what to choose. Like, what was the best, really? Like, both works for me in a way.
I think what you should think about is it comes from this. I felt that. So here you play. The articulation is quite set, so I think that articulation has to come before. This sounded very much more staccato than here. He does write slows, so I would bring this articulation back earlier. You understand? And I think.
Because he doesn't write slow, the bar before. Is it intentional or not? Like, that's the question.
I think it's unintentional. I would say he brings back the theme. He chooses to bring back the theme. He doesn't write dots on it. I think he didn't write it because you can't slur thumbs, but he writes. There he writes. He was a pianist, so he wouldn't ask for impossible. And here, and this one is definitely slurred. So,
that one, yeah.
So, yes, you can argue that shouldn't be, but I would play it slurred. And then don't forget there's a crescendo coming here.
Yeah.
And I think to get from the crescendo back to piano, you need time anyway. So I think that kind of, if you approach each element separately, that you try and shape this, you try and shape that, and do what he says, then I think that will solve the question itself when you get back to that. Let me just think, there was that. You could think about making more difference with the second time. He writes the acciaccatura the second time with a line through it. So that kind of implies it's maybe more playful the second time, maybe not. But don't do it the same. Again, the final thing was in this poco andante. I mean, I also agree that it should get broader, but what didn't make sense to me was then in bar 189 here, you suddenly got faster again. I don't know whether that's intentional. I would keep the speed you've got here. I wouldn't suddenly change it there. But otherwise, I mean, very well done. So I hope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Bravo,